All right, let's talk about Shemar Stewart here of the Cincinnati Bengals. So Stewart, if you don't know, was a very talked about player before he even played an NFL game. He was drafted 17th overall, and many people felt like that was a bit of a high draft pick for him. I'll put up his draft profile from PFF on the screen, and you see they gave him a 79.5 overall grade, a good run defense grade, a very mediocre pass rush grade. And keep in mind, this is for college prospects, so usually you want to be great in both categories to get drafted in the first round. He was only mediocre in one of those categories, which you just don't usually see guys with that kind of grade get drafted in the first round. Also, if you don't like this kind of stats, only 1.5 sacks each of the last 3 seasons in college. So a lot of people felt like maybe getting picked 17th overall was too high. He then had a whole contract dispute that he almost was willing to sit out and get drafted a following year. Then this year, this is his, again, not to say that PFF is the end-all be-all, of course, just using it as a measurement. 119th graded edge rusher out of 119 eligible so far on the season. So that's definitely gotten, thrown in the Bengals' face a little bit. But what I like to do is I like to watch film. I don't want to just simply go off of any, metric. A lot of people will say, like, do you like PFF? Do you dislike PFF? And ultimately, I'm like, I think it's better than most metrics, but still it's not going to beat good old-fashioned film studies. So let's get into the film and talk about, do I agree, and has Stewart actually been playing poorly? I want to start off with this play because this is what you need to see more of from Stewart. Going up one-on-one against a left tackle here for the Chicago Bears. And for Stewart, kind of what was talked about with him was that he is a great athlete, really physical, moves really well for his size, but ultimately needs to get his hands more involved. On this play, he's going to do that. Watch how when it begins, you see that right here, really the key to this play, hands are so important when it comes to pass rush and this kind of thing, is you see Stewart's right hand. Right there, you notice he's, I should mention, the player he's going up against, Theo Benedict, the backup tackle for the Bears. But you see Stewart gets his left hand in position to where it can't latch on to Stewart. Because of that, you essentially can drive him backwards. Watch, Stewart comes over, Joe Thuney, doing what Joe Thuney does, making sure he reads that his left tackle needs help, gets over and, takes away Stewart on the play. But ultimately, that's a good play. You force a double team, like you kind of, maybe force Williams to feel like he has to throw a little bit quicker. This is an effective play. I'm not even sure if that's a pressure, but that's one you look at and say, okay, there is value there. The issue is going over to this play, you really have to work to find those types of valuable plays. That's just not what you're seeing. What you see far more often and far more frequently is something like this. This is now going up against the right tackle for Chicago. And when this play begins, again, going up against Darnell Wright, who, in fairness, is a very good right tackle for the Chicago Bears. You see, though, for Stewart, doesn't have the hand placement he wants. Wright is able to kind of latch on to the, the chest area of Stewart. And when Stewart tries to now get his hands involved, it's just too late. He can't do anything to get around. Eventually, this play goes on for long enough. Stewart's almost able to make, it would have been funny if he got like a cleanup sack there or something, but there was just nothing available. And it was good stuff by Wright, but the hand placement, Stewart just does not get his hands involved hardly at all on these plays. Like, we can go over to this one, another example. This time, what's going to happen is, so the Cincinnati Bengals have been using him in several different ways. Again, for Stewart, if you're sort of unaware of his profile, he is someone who is listed at 290 pounds, which is a lot heavier than most edge rushers are. Most edge rushers are around 250, somewhere from 240 to 260. I think 250, 260 is where you usually see them. 290 is a lot, so they've been putting him as an interior player for a bit. On this one, going to try and overpower the player who he's going up against. Again, working on a lot of different Chicago players. Now going up against the right guard on this play. That's Jonah Jackson, who's holding his own at this point. As Stewart tries to overpower him, that's not fully working. Stewart eventually decides to just lift the hand up, and to be honest, I would have liked to see him continue to fight on that play. I feel like he lifted his hand up a bit too early. He did actually do a decent job of driving Jackson a little bit further back. I think if you keep fighting on that play, maybe you're able to get more value. I think he kind of gave up on it a bit too quickly. I get it. Williams kind of moved the ball a little bit. He probably thought Williams was going to throw, but still, not a great rep there. Heading over to this one, another situation, one-on-one matchup with Jonah Jackson once again on the inside. And to be honest, part of me is almost like, well, where do I go with some of these plays? Because like, it's just, if I try to show you enough plays, you're just going to kind of see the same thing over and over again. See here, once again, it's just like, not able to generate any pressure, not able to make an impact on the play. That was a quick throw as well, but still, like, that's just what you see, is you see a lot of reps that just don't go particularly well for Shemar Stewart. That is the constant here. This one is probably worth talking about. So this is once again a one-on-one matchup against Jonah Jackson. Stewart is going to try something a little bit different than just overpowering. Like I think the fair comparison to bring up is Trayvon Walker, another guy who was drafted primarily due to athleticism, didn't have a ton of production in college. Walker's been a solid player for the Jaguars. Probably shouldn't have been drafted over Aiden Hutchinson, but been a solid player, and maybe that's something that you can get out of Stewart. Here on this play, you see how Stewart's going to kind of go, try and make a move here. Try to get sort of towards the side of Jackson. And again, for Walker, kind of what happened with him is he would bull rush. It's kind of something that most good NFL linemen can deal with, and he had to figure out just enough of the technique to allow his insane power to work. Well, here, Stewart, going to try something else, and you're going to have to see him try new things. The good news about the Bengals not being great is you can just throw him out there for a ton of snaps, let him try new things, get reps here. Here, though, with Jackson getting the, his arm on the right shoulder of Stewart, watch as he really clears off that lane. I mean, that's just, to the point where he cleared it off, he actually knocked his own tackle out of position and almost created a pressure that way, but that wasn't intentional from Stewart. He just got knocked out of the way. So, yeah, that wasn't an ideal play on that one. So, trying new things, that's good. You want to see that, but again, you're going to just have to keep trying it. Now, I'll go over here. Like, hey, it was not all bad. This one, it's still not a great situation. So, going up against the right tackle, it's supposed to be a one-on-one matchup. There is another, I believe it's another offensive lineman who was in the game for the Chicago Bears. That's Ozzy Chapalo, the sixth offensive lineman who's kind of right next to them. When this play begins, there was someone that maybe was going to rush, is now not. So, you have two offensive linemen to your left. So that's a difficult situation. Stewart is going to try something where he says, hey, there's a clear lane if I try to go up through the middle. I'm going to just move. Watch. Why try to get through two guys when you can run around that way? Now, Caleb Williams does a nice job of making him miss, although he does come back and, gets on his feet and is able to impact that play. Of course, there's a huge risk with that, which is if you're going to do that, you can't give up containment, and that might have been in part why he got fooled so badly on that juke by Williams, because you have to just make sure you don't give up containment. But that's a play that he helped blow up. Like, that was a positive play from Stewart. Williams had to throw the football away. So, okay, it's not beating a tackle one-on-one the way you want to see, but there's still something there. However, for me, this is the biggest disappointment with Stewart right now is, listen, I didn't expect this guy to be a great pass rusher. I didn't. His pass rush skills, I watched a lot of tape of him in college. They weren't really refined. He didn't consistently win. The talent is there, but usually that takes 3 years to really get it down. Danielle Hunter, it was his third year that he kind of put it all together. Trayvon Walker, I know he had 10 sacks his second year, but really it was his third year he became an effective player. He kind of had a lot of cleanup sacks that second year. But I showed you the numbers. For Shemar Stewart, he was an effective run defender his first year, and he just hasn't really been that. In college, and he just hasn't been that this year. So you have, it's once again, right guard Jonah Jackson who's going to block him one-on-one, who's a good player, I should mention. Jonah Jackson's having a nice season for Chicago. You see how when this play begins, I don't know if Stewart was just kind of blindsided by Jackson here, although it seems like he noticed it and tried to get around him a little bit, and watch Jackson just knock Stewart to the ground. I mean, that's disappointing that you're not even really getting a ton of value there. And in fact, I talked about the him being the lowest graded overall edge rusher on the season according to PFF. Well, he's the lowest graded run defender by a decent margin actually in that situation. The pass rush has still not been good, but at least he's better than 12 guys that have been had enough snaps to be eligible there. Again, not saying PFF is the end-all be-all, and I'm not saying the first half of the season is the end-all be-all. Hey, he did actually have a nice week one before really struggling since then. And it's worth mentioning he missed some time as well. So we're just, I mean, he had a career high in snaps against the Chicago Bears. They're still kind of working him back. So maybe he's not fully healthy. That's always a possibility here. Maybe something I should have mentioned at the top of the show. But he has been playing for, this is the third straight week that he's been back. It's his fifth game overall. So, listen, he has struggled in 177 career snaps at this point in his career. He did not play well against the Chicago Bears. You just got to work on the technique. You got to figure out a way for him to gain value. I have not given up on Shemar Stewart, despite how critical I have been of him and how I don't think he played very well in this game, because I didn't expect him to come into the league and play great. He was a project pick at the time. It's going to take him some time. I don't expect him to be great this year. I don't expect him to be great next year, but it doesn't mean he can't be at least a good player eventually. But for now, that's kind of how I view him. Which is maybe disappointing if, the Bengals did have aspirations to be competitive this year. But I guess the good news about drafting like Shemar Stewart is you happen to have an unfortunate year where your quarterback goes down and you have time to develop him. So we'll see if they can do that. But yeah, those are my thoughts on all of this. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.